Hello and welcome. My name is Robin and this is Battleground Eternia, the podcast for the new skirmish wargame Masters of the Universe Battleground by Errata Studio. Hello again to the very first episode of the English edition of Battleground Eternia. My small personal podcast just about Masters of the Universe Battleground, the new skirmish wargame from Errata Studio. I'm really happy to record this special episode. I was asked a lot why I do not publish my podcast in English because the audience is that much bigger, and today this is going to start. Especially I'm happy for the English-speaking users on our Discord server who might get a little extra now or another thing to talk about. So please join us there. You're welcome. At the beginning of each episode, I'd like to start with some news and updates which emerged within the last days. Let's go ahead with this. The news that is the most important for me personally is that the German edition is released. I already got my box and I was so happy to receive a free Battle Cat miniature with it. This was great. I already built all the miniatures and primed them, and now, after my holiday coming next week, I'm going to start to paint them. But this is not everything. The Polish edition is going to be released next week, and next week the pre-order for Wave 1 is going to start, and it should be shipping in 2 weeks. So, today is June the 27th. It won't take that long till we've got our hands on the new expansions. At the last live stream, the content of those 2 coming boxes were shown. And man, it's a lot of stuff included there. As I've said, there will be 2 boxes, one per faction, one for the defenders and one for the evil warriors, and each box is going to include 2 miniatures. It's the sorceress and Tila for the defenders and Beastman and Scareglow on the evil side. Additionally, there will be some terrain in those boxes. It's 2 small flat hexes with an unknown use for the evil warriors, which I'm pretty sure is going to be difficult terrain. And there are 3 huge portals for the defenders. I have no idea how this is going to work, but I'm looking forward to it. Each pack also includes a lot of cards. There will be 2 Fate cards and 1 Glory card per pack, 1 Weapon for close and ranged combat, 1 new spell, 2 trinkets, and the defenders will get another shield, and the evil warriors 1 armor card. If you look closely at the picture, it is possible to read some of those cards, but now I'm not going to talk about it. You could just zoom in and have a look. I'm really looking forward for this. But we all know that after Wave 1, Wave 2 is going to be released soon. But you English-speaking fan of this game, there is another small teaser. In the German edition of this show, I told it a few weeks ago, but I have not seen this information on any English site or Facebook group or whatever. It is an information I've got straight from Jacek Karpowicz, the developer of this game. and it was a small teaser about Wave 2, which is going to be released in August and will include a new map, more terrain and missions. Okay, just as a small reminder. The teaser by itself was, and this is a quote, "I do not want to forget anything." The teaser was, "I can share a little secret. Wave 2 will focus more on the players who want to play just for fun instead of those who are looking for super serious competitive games. There is nothing wrong with either. However, we believe that Masters of the Universe Battleground can use some lighter aspects." So, not that much of information, but in my opinion, it tells us something about a new way of playing this game. The starter box missions were very, very symmetric, so perfectly for tournaments and something like this. But those missions are kind of one-dimensional. And I really, really hope that this is going to change. I think that it will be more cinematic missions where you have to achieve different things, not just go to the mission marker, claim it, and be happy, but something like, I don't know, carry that mission marker across the board, or conquer this marker and defend it. Or there are a lot of different possibilities here, and I really, really hope that there will be some creative, fun missions waiting for us. After the news, I would like to talk a little bit about certain rules or errata we've got. And now I would like to tell you about a discussion which started at our Discord server, which was really, really interesting and which I would like to share with you. We discussed the push and pull rules because they are written not that clearly at the moment. The rules just say that the opponent is moved on a straight line between both miniatures, if it is pushed by any means. But it is not defined at which point of the base that line starts or ends, so it could be possible to push the opponent to different hexes, and it is not said who decides what path the pushed model moves. And finally, this question was solved by Jacek Karpowicz. Man, I really hope that the way I pronounce your name is not totally off. I have to admit, I asked my Polish wife how it is said, and so I hope. Okay, back to topic. The question was solved by Jacek Karpowicz on Board Game Geek. First, he recommends that the line used should connect the center of both bases, and the player who controls the pushing character decides the path taken, especially if there are multiple possible paths. Jacek also said that he is sorry for not writing those rules clear enough, and this is going to be changed or clarified within planned errata and FHQ. So it makes the rule a lot clearer to have these points, but I personally have to admit that I do not like the word recommend. I would have preferred if he just says this is going to be that way. Either choose any point you like or just use the center. So now it is very unclear, and I predict that there will be a lot of discussions. But I'm really happy that the official FAQ is going to be released hopefully soon. Okay? For more information on this whole discussion, please just join our Discord server. You're very welcome there. So let's just move to the main phase of today's episode. Today we're going to start a close look at all the characters released so far. But before this, I think it is necessary to explain my way of doing it a little bit. All of my reviews start with a look at the lore of this character. Nothing fancy, but a short write-up of the different versions, which normally come from different sources. Also, I started to watch the cartoons again. My lore knowledge has faded within the last 30 years. So, most things I tell you about the model's background comes from the German page www.dark-universe.de, which is a very, very good source for anything of lore and the different characters from the Master's universe. And after talking about the lore, I'm going through all the stats of the model and explain its skills and have a look at its basic equipment and the different items it could choose from. To understand what those stats mean and what this model is capable of, I will go on and talk about probabilities. This is very basic too, but it might give you some hint at what you want to achieve with this character and what to avoid. For attacks, I check the average number of successes against an average defense stat of 3 and tell you how many net successes you could expect against a scope of 4 and 3, which I call normally with focus, because this is the most common source for this effect. After this, I say how many successes the model is going to achieve when it is defending or is using its skills. The last crunchy part is the amount of points you have to pay for this model. Going on, I will sum it up with a little first impression, and then starts the tough part. I define what the jobs are that this character is going to have on the tabletop and start or try to formulate some basic tactics which normally include the missions that this model likes to play. I will go on with equipment that will support this specific tactics. At this point, I have to tell you that I got the permission from Arkan Studio to read everything that is on the cards to you, so that you don't need your cards at hand to see and understand what I'm talking about. Thank you, Arkan, for this. I close my review with a conclusion about what my opinion is and how well this character is going to perform. It is important to say at this point that I am talking just about my personal opinion and how I would be playing this model. By no means this is the right and only way to play it. There are probably a lot more ways to achieve victory with a model, and I would be glad if you tell me about your ways of playing it. So, just tell me in the comments. If there are enough different tactics for a single character, I'm going to do another episode for that model to update my views and impressions. Okay? So let's start with He-Man. He is known under a lot of different names. Strongest man in the universe, just as an example. But no matter how you call him, he is the hero of our childhood days, the core of the whole series, and so the centerpiece of this game. Or is he really? Let's have a look. There are different backstories for He-Man which depend on the sources you look at. There are the mini-comics which came as an extra with the action figure sets. In those, He-Man was a hunter of one of the wood tribes which lived on Eternia. He was appointed by the sorceress to fight against Skeletor, the evil lord of destruction. Within the cartoons, this was changed to the ways we all know it, from a Saturday morning rituals. He-Man is actually Prince Adam, son of King Randor and Queen Marlena. He is rather known as a coward. But on his 18th birthday, he received a special gift from the sorceress, the Sword of Power. With this weapon he should fulfill an old prophecy and fight the Lord of Destruction, Skeletor. When he calls upon the power, Adam is transformed into the greatest hero of all times, He-Man. But there are just a few comrades who know this secret. His powers are limitless strength, and legendary is his sense of justice and helpfulness. But how does this translate to the battleground? So let's have a look at his stat card. He's got a health of 5, toughness 3, mind 3, power 3, perception 3, strange, oh damn, I hate that th, a strange of 5, movement of 5 or 8, and his abilities are: I have the power. During any test, He-Man may re-roll 1 extra die for each mana spent on re-rolls. And the other one is superhuman reflexes. He-Man cannot receive mana from Fate or Glory card. If he gains focus, he also gains 1 mana. His basic equipment is the Sword of Power. It is a close combat weapon which is iconic. There is no modification for the number of dices, and for 1 success you will do 1 damage. 3 successes are needed for 2 damage, and with 5 successes he does 3 damage to its opponent. Before attacking, he may spend up to 3 mana to gain 1 additional dice per mana spent. The items he could choose from is 1 close combat weapon, 1 ranged combat weapon, 1 shield, 1 armor, and 2 trinkets. He does cost 19 points, and his sword another 3 points, which you do not have to pay because you do not have to equip it. But as you probably know, He-Man is the only model that could choose this item. Okay, so for the probabilities. During a melee, he will achieve an average number of 1.1 net successes, and with a focus marker it is raised to 2 net successes. This is kind of good, but not the killer we thought. But this is going to change if he uses his Sword of Power. With 3 additional die, he does an average of 2.8 net successes, or 4.1 net successes with a focus marker, which is really, really strong. But remember that each mana spent on rerolls on him gives him, statistically, 1 additional net success. So you see, he really, really likes his mana. He needs it. A lot of it. Okay, let's go on. Yes, his toughness and mind is average. He got a 3 in both of those stats, which means that he does, statistically, he will the number of successes rolled against him by 1.5 or 2 if he spends some mana. And this is going to be a big problem. Nothing unsolvable, but nothing unsolvable, especially if he has some mana left for rerolls, but it's tough. Well, the lack of toughness is what concerns me. Okay, at the first look he appears to be a strong close combatant, but who is not that tough. Also, he strongly depends from his allies, and his drawback from superhuman reflexes is dramatic. Or is it really that much? Let's go on. When I first looked at this model, I thought that it would be really fragile. Too fragile for He-Man. In the German episode, I said that it would be extremely necessary for him to be in cover to get close to the opponent so that he could strike from the shadows. But while I was talking, I realized that this is absolutely true to the character. What, you gonna ask? He-Man is fragile? And of course he is not. But Prince Adam is, and in my mind this model starts as Prince Adam moves unseen to its opponent, raises the sword of power and shouts the famous words. After this he strikes once and the enemy is defeated. If he got some damage earlier. And this is the most important tactic for He-Man. Stay out of sight, move to an important but ideally damaged target. Before striking, get as much mana as possible on him and attack with maximum power. But you have to decide if you want to give him 3 bonus dice from his sword and leave 2 mana for rerolls, or take just 2 bonus dice and 3 rerolls. 2 reroll dice per mana are more efficient than 1 bonus die, but often you don't need to reroll 6 dice. So leaving 3 mana for rerolls might be a little bit of a gamble. And this leads us to another point to discuss. He had a huge drawback which could make it tricky to play this character. He's very dependent on mana, but because of his superhuman reflexes, it is much harder for him to get some, or better, to get enough mana. He needs a lot of support from other miniatures and his items to get the amount of mana he likes. His best buddies are Stratos, leader of Avion for focus on mana, and Man-at-Arms, master tactician for mana. Items he likes are discussed in a minute. For this one devastating strike, He-Man likes to attack with a focus token on him, and often he will have one, because this is a safe way for him to get some mana. But always remember that even if you have the maximum number of dice in your hand and some spare mana for rerolls, you will never do more than 3 damage. So no matter how hard you hit an undamaged opponent, he will stand after this and be ready to return you this favor. And remember that He-Man likes any mission that allows him to sneak up to his opponent and ambush high-value targets. Stone City and a secret hideout allows him to do this because there is a lot of cover for him. Okay, so let's have a look at the equipment I could imagine him to carry. The Sword of Power for 3 points is really good and will allow him to strike really hard. But I have to admit that in my mind it is really hard to see He-Man with any other weapon than the Sword of Power, just for fluff reasons. But if you really want to, there are different possibilities for him. He-Man really likes the mace. For 3 points, he could use his brutal power to push enemies from mission tokens, what is really powerful. Another opinion would be the electronic Sword of Power for 4 points, because this is another way to maximize the number of net successes as long as the opponent is low on mana. So in this case, you probably would like to activate He-Man really late, after high-value targets like Skeletor have spent most of their mana. Another fun item is the Battle Axe. 5 points, and again this means maximum damage, but personally I prefer this weapon on Ram-Man. He-Man is able to carry a ranged weapon, but I really don't like any of the published ranged weapons on He-Man, so I can't recommend to equip one of those. If you found the perfect ranged weapon, please tell me in the comments. And as I have already said, this He-Man is sometimes more Prince Adam than you might think, so he really likes to wear some armor items. But they are not necessary, but make it easier to play this model. He likes to be able to take more damage and likes to spend mana on his attacks. So here you will probably prefer the battle harness for 3 points, which just give him flat +1 on his toughness. But this will paint a big red cross on his chest. Pun intended. Shields are another good option for He-Man. They are really good, but again, they are no must-buys. Okay? The Shield of Ka, in my opinion, is not that good on him, because he likes to get close to its opponent, so he would lose the benefit soon. The Flaming Shield for 2 points is better, because He-Man will, as I have said, often have a focus token on him, so this would be better. As you might have guessed, He-Man likes trinkets that improve him in what he likes to do. So there are a few options here we could choose from. The Grayskull Ring for 2 points is as close to a must-buy as possible. It is a good source for focus markers and so for mana. As a short reminder, this item gives you a free focus marker if your attack does achieve 3 or more successes, net successes. And additionally, to get some mana, he likes something like the Orb of Power, the Spell Stone or the Magic Potion for 2 points each. Those get him some mana, what is really nice, but there might be better options. Just if you have some points left and no one who would benefit more from these items, you really should think about getting him some of those, or even one. Another option I would like to tell you is the jetpack. It does cost 3 points, but it's really good for surprise attacks. He could jump 4 or 7 hex fields with it, and so he could jump out of cover to attack. Again, there are better models for this item. But if you like, it is an option. And there is a complete different build, which I would like to tell you about as a side note. In that case, he would choose the Wheel of Infinity for 2 points and the Gam of Damage for 2 more points. And this will make him a lot more of a defender. In that case, you maybe also would like to buy him the Terror Claws and just place him somewhere where the opponent has to engage him. But it's something different, okay? Okay, that's it. In the original German episode on him, I found it quite difficult to judge this model, because the game was so new. Now it is hard again, because I really would like to like him, but on the other hand, he doesn't feel that powerful as he should. He has a huge disadvantage coming from his superhuman reflexes, but he is still a good character at the moment. This might be another problem, what a lot of models from starter boxes in different games tend to have. In a starter box, there are typically the most iconic characters from an IP, but often these characters are the least played because of newer characters simply become more powerful. Yes, the old feared enemy of power creep. And I fear that this could happen to He-Man, which is a destiny that he just does not deserve. So let us just hope that this will not happen, or that there will be another version of him that fits more into the power level of the other newer characters. He is really strong and a hard-hitting model, and a lot of people will enjoy him to play. But you have to be aware that he is not the He-Man from the cartoons. He is not undefeatable, and if you play him too aggressive, he will not be on the battleground for too long, what might disappoint players. So I really hope that the look we had on He-Man today could help us all to prevent him from this fate. Or maybe you have learned all about his weaknesses, and so you will soon be able to conquer Eternia. It's up to you. Hopefully you have enjoyed this show. Feedback and critique is always welcome. Just write me an email at bg-eternia@mail.de or leave me a comment wherever you found this show. Or, what I would prefer is just join us at our Discord server. The link is within the show notes. So, please join me again next time at Battleground Eternia. Music Climb by Shane Ivers at https://silvermansound.com. Sound effects obtained from https://zapsplat.com.